Hello everyone, I'm Elaine Yao from the University of British Columbia. In this talk, I will be presenting my work, SwarmFuzz, Discovering GPS Spoofing Attacks in Drone Swarms. This attack is done in collaboration with my colleague, Pritam Dash, and my advisor, Karthik. Drone swarms are a type of distributed cyber-physical systems inspired by swarm intelligence. They usually have a number of drones communicating with each other and working together to carry out large-scale missions, which cannot be performed by a single one. For example, they have been widely used in agriculture and search and rescue missions. So, how would a drone swarm fulfill a mission? Usually, they will take the following steps. First, it receives a mission goal, for example, to arrive at a destination. Then, to navigate themselves to the goal, the drone swarm needs to know their current states, such as the location and velocity, and they collect this state information using sensors such as GPS. After that, these swarm members will share their own state through the communication channel so that every drone knows the neighbor's location and the velocity. In the end, the distributed swarm control algorithm, which is equipped in each drone, will generate control commands based on the neighbor's location and the velocity. However, several parts of the drone swarm system are actually quite vulnerable. These parts include the sensors, communication channels, and the swarm control algorithm. These security threats could be considered in terms of stealthiness and cost. Prior work has shown how to exploit logic flaws in the swarm control algorithms and masquerade attacks through the communication channel. However, these attackers need to bring in external attack drones. Each drone will cost at least $500, and this is expensive. Also, these external drones are easy to be discovered, for example, by intruder detection techniques, so this is not stealthy either. In this way, the current attacks are both high cost and not stealthy. So here comes the question: can we design a stealthy and low cost attack? To answer this, we propose to use GPS spoofing for a new kind of attack against the drone swarm. Let's take a look at how GPS spoofing works. The drone relies on GPS sensors for localization. To calculate its current location, it uses the signal received from the GPS satellites. During the GPS spoofing, the attacker transmits false signals using a GPS spoofer, so that the victim drone will calculate based on the false signal, and finally find itself located at the spoofed location instead of the real one. I hope this won't scare you, but we actually have seen GPS spoofing attacks in real life. For example, in 2017, over 20 vessels were under GPS spoofing attacks in the Black Sea. Also, in 2018, when 100 drones were performing a live show in Hong Kong, they were attacked by the GPS jamming, and this causes 46 drones to plummet, and also the financial loss in 1 million Hong Kong dollars. Imagine the attacker were performing GPS spoofing attacks on these drones, which is more stealthy. The damage could be even worse. In our attack, we assume that the communication channel is encrypted, so that the attacker cannot modify the messages inside the swarm. Also, to be low cost and stealthy, we assume that the attacker cannot introduce any external drones into the swarm. However, the attacker has access to the location of the swarm members as well as the swarm control algorithm. Also, we assume the attacker can spoof at least one drone. Now, let me show you our attack. We found an important vulnerability that is unique to the drone swarm, which we call the swarm propagation vulnerabilities, in short, SPVs. By using GPS spoofing, the attacker can exploit SPVs and thus disrupt the drone swarm. For example, in this two-drone swarm, when one drone meets the obstacle, it tries to avoid from the left. However, things are different in an adversarial setting. When an attacker performs GPS spoofing over another drone, we find that by strategically choosing the GPS spoofing parameter, the drone that is not under GPS spoofing could crash into an unpathogenic vehicle obstacle. In this attack, we call the drone that is under GPS spoofing the target drone, and the other drone which is not under GPS spoofing but will crash into obstacle, the victim drone. Our attack is low cost because it only needs a GPS spoofer, which takes only $100. Our attack is also stealthy because we don't bring in any external drones, and most importantly, since we only see the victim drone going around, identifying the target drone as a bad apple will be difficult. Let's think about it. If the attacker misleads the target drone to collide with the victim drone, we can immediately tell who is the bad guy, and this is not stealthy. We have just gone through what is SPV. Now let's see what causes SPV. How actually this is due to the design choices in the swarm control algorithm. For example, here in the figure we show a swarm of 5 drones with an unpacked obstacle. We found that the swarm control algorithm generates proper control commands based on some goals. There are some typical examples of these goals. One is to avoid collision between the swarm and the obstacle, and the other one is to maintain the formation of the swarm. From the first goal, to avoid collisions, the swarm control algorithm will generate a repulsive velocity. For a second goal, to maintain the formation, an attractive velocity between two drones will be generated, and the overall velocity for the drone is shown on the blue arrow in our figure. Now imagine an attacker comes in. She chooses a victim drone and performs GPS spoofing attacks in another drone, which is the target drone. The target drone will then share its erroneous location to all other swarm members. Based on this erroneous information, the swarm control algorithm will generate erroneous commands. For example, after GPS spoofing attacks, the victim drone will think the target drone is further away from it. To maintain the formation, it will generate an attractive velocity for the target drone. At the same time, the victim drone will also have a repulsive velocity to avoid the obstacle. However, these two velocities are actually conflicting with each other because the velocity in green makes the victim drone to move towards the obstacle. To balance these conflicting goals, the swarm control algorithm has to assign different weights to them. For example, if the swarm control algorithm prioritizes the goal of maintaining the formation, that is, assigning larger weight to the side velocity of the green arrow, it is possible that the overall velocity of the victim drone will point towards the obstacle, and this will cause a collision. Therefore, it is the design choices in the swarm control algorithm that cause the SPVs. Since XPVs can cause severe outcomes in drone swarm, it would be helpful if we could know how resilient the swarm mission is against SPVs, especially before the actual deployment. To do so, we want to mimic the attack as closely as possible and to automatically find SPVs in advance. However, automatically finding SPVs is challenging. The first challenge is how to choose the proper and target victim drone pairs. We empirically find that not all drone pairs can be used to cause the crash. In a large-scale drone swarm, there are numerous combinations of the drone pairs. A brute force approach is obviously infeasible. However, we observe that if we want to maximize the attack impact with minimal effort, we should find the most influential drone as a target drone. Similarly, Since the victim drone is influenced by the target drone to collide with the obstacle, we should find the drone under the most influence as the victim drone. And if the drone is already close to the obstacle when there is no attack, it's highly likely that this drone could collide with the obstacle under disruption. These observations could help us to choose the target victim drone pairs wisely. Another challenge is how to choose the GPS spoofing parameters. In our attack, we need to decide the attack start time and the attack duration, and this input space is huge. However, we observe that if we want to cause a collision between the distance between the drone and the obstacle, in fact, we want to minimize the distance between them, and we call this distance as VDO. Then, we further find that the VDO is a convex function with respect to the GPS spoofing parameters. For example, when GPS spoofing duration is short, the victim drone passes the obstacle from the left. If the GPS spoofing duration is too long, the victim drone might overshoot and pass the obstacle from the right. Therefore, only a certain amount of GPS spoofing duration could cause the drone to collide with the obstacle. And this is a convex optimization problem, where we want to find the GPS spoofing time as that results in the minimal VDO. Motivated by these observations, we propose SwarmFuzz. SwarmFuzz has two innovations to find the SPVs efficiently. First, to tackle challenge 1, that is, to choose the target victim drones, we develop a graph abstraction called SVG and utilize graph centrality analysis to measure the influence of each target victim drone pair. And the most influential drone pairs are prioritized during the fuzzing to discover the vulnerabilities more efficiently. We call this step C-scheduling. Second, to tackle challenge 2, that is, to find the GPS spoofing parameters, we apply search-based fuzzing to find these parameters that will cause collisions. First, let's take a look at the C-scheduling part. As we mentioned before, we want to select the most influential drone as a target drone, and the drone under the most influence as a victim drone. To do such a selection, we want to measure the influence of each swarm member. Therefore, we abstract the swarm as a graph to model the interaction between these members. In graph, the centrality of the node represents its influence. Therefore, we use centrality analysis to calculate an influence of each drone. At last, we rank the drone pairs based on their influence and prioritize the most influential pair during the fuzzing. This helps SwarmFuzz to find the promising drone pairs efficiently. We refer the audience to our paper for details on how to build SVG and perform centrality analysis. Second, for search-based fuzzing, as we mentioned before, we find that finding the proper GPS spoofing parameters is a convex problem. Performing spoofing for either too short or too long will cause the victim drone to avoid the obstacle. We need to find the sweet spot where the victim drone just collides with the obstacle, and this is the lowest point in the convex function. To solve this, we apply gradient descent search, which is known to be efficient for a convex optimization problem. During the search, we calculate the gradient of the current point to update the spoofing parameters. This gradient information is helpful for speeding up the search process and finally guiding us to the global minimum. For the evaluation, we choose SwarmLab. This is a popular swarm simulator. SwarmLab implements two state-of-the-art swarm control algorithms, and we choose one of them, the VSEC, in our evaluation. VSEC algorithm is highly cited and has also been validated on real hardware with a large drone swarm. As for the swarm configurations, we choose swarms with 5 and 10 and 15 drones. For each configuration, we perform 100 missions. The mission details are shown on the right. We consider a mission that aims to reach a predefined destination, which is 200 meters away, while avoiding a single unpacked vehicle obstacle. The drone swarm can avoid colliding with the obstacle under normal operation. And for the GPS spoofing deviation, we consider it to be 5 and 10 meters. This is within the acceptable GPS fault. If we choose it to be a larger deviation, the GPS spoofing detector will raise an alarm. As for the success rate metric, we consider an SVP to be successfully found if and only if the victim drone crashes into the unpacked vehicle obstacle under GPS spoofing. Here come the core questions. How effective is our SwarmFuzz? And what kind of swarm mission is more vulnerable to SPVs? Here we show the success rate of SwarmFuzz in finding SPVs across different drone swarm configurations. We observe that the success rates of SwarmFuzz vary from 21% to 74% across different configurations, with an average of 50%. This shows that SwarmFuzz is highly effective in finding SPVs for different swarm configurations. Further, when looking at the success rate in each role, we observe that larger swarm size results in higher success rate. This is because larger swarms are denser, and this makes the obstacle avoidance more difficult. When looking at the success rate in each column, we observe that the larger GPS spoofing deviation leads to higher success rate. This is because higher GPS spoofing distance allows the attacker to disrupt the swarm more. We also perform an population study. Recall that we used two heuristics, the SVG and the gradient guided optimization. To evaluate the effect of these heuristics, we compare SwarmFuzz with other three alternative designs. The first is RFuzz. It doesn't implement either heuristics and instead randomly choose the drone pairs as well as the spoofing parameters. Second, GFuzz. It only implements the gradient guided optimization. Third, SFuzz. It only implements the SVG. Therefore, we evaluate the effect of SVG by comparing SwarmFuzz with GFuzz, and the effect of gradient-guided optimization by comparing SwarmFuzz with SFuzz. We have two metrics for each fuzzer, the success rate and the runtime overhead. For the runtime overhead, we report the average number of search iterations taken by the fuzzer. For each search iteration, it takes roughly 2 minutes to finish. Let's take a look at the result. Ideally, we want a high success rate with low overhead. As for the success rate, by comparing SwarmFuzz with GFuzz, we find that SVG boosts the success rate by up to 10 times. As for the runtime overhead, by comparing SwarmFuzz with SFuzz, we find that gradient-guided optimization reduces the overhead by up to 3 times. Here are some takeaways about experiment results of SwarmFuzz. SwarmFuzz finds that the swarm mission with a larger size are more vulnerable to attacks exploiting SPVs. This suggests that the designers should expend more effort in securing large-scale drone swarms. And if the swarm mission is found to be vulnerable to SPVs, the designers should tune the parameters in the control algorithm to make it secure. Moreover, to the best of our knowledge, there is no fault-tolerant mechanism deployed in the mainstream distributed drone swarm system today. For example, there is no mechanism trying to achieve a consensus among drones. Our work calls for such fault-tolerance mechanism to secure the drone swarm. To summarize, we demonstrate SPVs, the vulnerabilities in swarm control algorithms that can be exploited by GPS spoofing attacks. To automatically discover SPVs in drone swarms, we propose SwarmFuzz, a filing framework that can be used to evaluate the resilience of the drone swarm beforehand. SwarmFuzz has two innovations: SVG and gradient descent, to help you to find SPVs efficiently. For trying our SwarmFuzz, our code is available in the link below. For any question, feel free to contact Elaine Yao. Thank you.